of WVON, Monterey Broadcasting Corporation, or participating sponsors. Live from the Xfinity Studios at WVON. Here's our inspirational perspective with Linal Harris on 1690, the talk of Chicago.
Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibility. Find your power, passion, and purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dream. The best right now. Inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live. Let's find your purpose now. Inspirational perspective. Let's slay your goals, let your greatness flow with inspirational perspective.
Good morning, Chicago. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach right here on WVON 1690 AM, the talk of Chicago. Inspirational Perspective on your radio is all about murdering mediocrity and living the best life possible. So as I ask you every Sunday morning, are you living the best life possible? And this is the place to be to explore that possibility. Well, good Sunday morning, everyone. Man, it's good to be back in the studio this morning, and I want to talk about today's show because one of the things that I'm covering, or one of the things I'll be talking about, is understanding policing in America. And I have a guest who will be coming on this morning, who is a retired police officer and former state trooper right here in Illinois, retired sergeant, and he'll be talking about giving us his perspective on policing in the United States of America. We'll be talking about that. And before we bring him on, I want to talk a little bit about, well, one, the last couple of weeks for me, and two, the idea that this is even a part of a conversation that needs to be had. And let me give some context in terms of that, because I think you guys know every Sunday when I come on the radio, I say to help us live the best life possible. And I think that one of the things that really hurts my heart is the fact that we even have to have a conversation like this on a Sunday morning with a former police officer, in terms of really, in some ways, understanding what it means to live your best life if you are black in the United States of America. And I'm present to that. And I mean, I had a real hard time with it over the last week, since I knew I would do the show, because I'm like, man, why do I have to do a show like this? Like, why can't I talk more about personal development? And by the way, I mean, think about this. The last time we had a conversation purely, and that's it, on personal development on this show, was when I did Personal Development 101 Part 1. And I haven't had the opportunity to get to Part 2 since. And that was about 4 weeks ago. Think about that. I mean, this is how much has been going on in our country, where I already know that many of the conversations that we're having with friends and family are about the things that we see in the news, etc. And I don't want this to be a conversation that you've already seen in the news. I really want this to be a conversation where we can learn and gain perspective, because one of the things I know most, and I've said this on the show, is that most offense, like when I'm offended about something, there is some level of ignorance. And so I said to myself, okay, well, I'm offended with the police right now. I want to gain a better understanding. And right now, if you're thinking, well, Linal, you know, what's this about? What are you saying? I want to be clear that this is an open conversation with an African-American police officer. And this is, I want to cue it up real quick. And this is in some ways how the conversation began. A little bit after George Floyd passed away, I have a number of different friends in law enforcement. This particular friend called me up. I said, man, help me. And we began to get into a conversation. I cut him off and I said, you know what? I don't want to just have this conversation between you and I want to have this conversation with my listeners. I want this conversation to be a conversation that's heard, not just in the quiet confines of a conversation, you know, me repeating what I hear on the radio. I want them to hear you. And he agreed. Now, let me preface it with this. He is retired, and I know other police officers who are currently active. And part of the reason why I chose Mr. Jonathan Morris, who will be with us in a second, is because he currently isn't a police officer. And I do know that the context shifts when you're in versus when you're out. Okay? And not to a lot of police officers listen to me, and I support police officers. And so I want to be clear about this, but I do want to have an open conversation. And so for any police officers listening, I want to invite you into the conversation. You can give us a phone call, 773-591-1690. But also for the listeners, as we're moving through this, if you have questions, I want you to call in with your questions, so we can really have some dialogue where we can all learn and really begin to understand what's happening here in the United States of America. But furthermore, how do we protect ourselves? But in my mind, how do we protect our children? Yesterday, we had my son's birthday party. So he's 3 years old. And I was out last week because we had the opportunity. I took my son up to downstate camping with my family and friends. And for my family that's listening, love you guys, man. We had a phenomenal time. But I call it my family and friends. Really, is my cousins, okay, who are family and friends. And so I went down there with my cousins. We had just a wonderful, peaceful time. But I want to be clear about something. One of the things that was lingering in the background for all of us, all men, all who took their sons, all black men that took their black sons. One of the things that's lingering in the background for all of us as men was our safety. Was overall, how do we take care of ourselves and this group of people that we love? And we had to have conversation about that. Because this is real. This is the real state of black men in America. We had to have conversation about that. Who's carrying? Who's not? Are there any weapons? I mean, everything was legal, right? But we just wanted to understand that on the campground, as black men, how are we protecting ourselves and our families? So this is this is real, man. And it's something that we're dealing with, and I'm saying black men, but I know black women who are raising black boys, are thinking about this. Black women who are raising black girls, thinking of Breonna Taylor. This is something that's real for us. And I want to get into that conversation to talk about it with Jonathan Morris, who is currently holding here. So Jonathan, let's bring him on the line here. Jonathan, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? So real quick, I just want to first introduce the audience to you. You and I, we've known each other most of our lives, man. And I knew
literally all of my life.
Yeah, all of your life. Yeah, and I knew you before you were a police officer. And we'll get into a whole lot of this, but first I want to just thank you for being willing to come on the air this morning and have this conversation and take questions like this, because I know this is not a incredibly popular topic. And I want to introduce you real quick. Jonathan Moores is a former Illinois State Trooper, retired sergeant, current entrepreneur, and president of AJ Trucking. He sits on the construction board for Illinois, for the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce, and is also starting a nonprofit called Teaching, Accessing, and Correcting. And so I'm excited to have you here this morning. Also someone who I call friend. And so to give some context of our relationship, Jonathan, I think one of the things I want to start with is how you and I have related to one another even throughout the time that you've been a police officer. And so back when I was single, I know you recall, man, you probably could tell the stories better, but you used to stop by the house all the time while you were on duty and tell me stories. And just kind of share with me what was going on, like your reality as a police officer. And for you, I want to hear from you what it was like being in active duty. First and foremost, before we kind of get into some of the other things we want to talk about. Like, what was it like being an active police officer on the streets, on the roads, on the interstates and highways of Illinois throughout Chicago when you were in active duty?
So let me start by saying I appreciate you having me on the show, and I am grateful and honored to be here. And America is going through an incredible time right now. And I'll explain how it's really, though, just cycling and coming to full light because of social media and because of technology. But this is something that's been going on even from my experience since 1966. I mean, my grandfather was killed by CPD. So that's a whole other story, and we'll talk about it. It's in Jet magazine as well. But so, I started my career in policing in 2004, and I started out as an Illinois State Trooper, and the Illinois State Police has a total different way of teaching and training police officers or troopers versus local municipality. So I've had both ends of the spectrum.
Okay, because you've worked in both, correct?
Correct. So
okay.
I worked as a state trooper, and then I worked as a police officer as well. Yeah.
Okay. And so what would you say, categorize the differences for us in terms of what you believe are, I would say, maybe the top three or main differences that we need to know as citizens who are encountering police officers? Because, I mean, I don't think we see the distinction when we get pulled over. Oh, this is a municipal police officer. Oh, this is a state trooper. And so what would you say are the differences?
Well, I'll start by saying this. The Illinois State Police, in my opinion, has literally one of the best training facilities and training in our country. The state police, and becoming a trooper, is much different than becoming a police officer. The requirements are different. The physical fitness standards are different.
So give me an example.
So for a state trooper, you have to take a PFIT test for the remainder of your career.
Okay, and what's that? What's a PFIT test?
So you have to be required to run a mile and a half, bench press 99% of your body weight, do 50 sit-ups in a minute, do a sit and reach test of 18 and a half inches. And you're required to do this for 26 years, 8 months, if that's the amount of time you desire to stay.
So hold on.
You can't perform those tests.
So slow down a little bit. Okay, so what you're telling me is that with state troopers, that one of the things they have to be able to do, they have to go through a yearly physical fitness exam. And this physical fitness exam includes cardio fitness, strength
Running a
testing,
mile and a half.
strength testing, but also and some level of flexibility.
100%.
Okay. Now, why does that matter? Why does that matter? I mean, in terms of training, why does it matter that the state police do this, and maybe does the Chicago Police Department do this?
No.
All right. So why does that matter? Why as citizens do we care that there's different levels of scrutiny on police officers?
Well, you got to think about it from this perspective. If you are a citizen and your car is on fire and you need to be evacuated from that vehicle, if the trooper is not in physically fit condition to be able to do his job, he's not going to be able to pull a body out of that vehicle. That's a problem. Your job is to be able to protect, to be able to secure, to be able to serve, to be able to be physically fit and ready to act at any moment based off of the totality of the circumstances. And I would argue to tell you that the state police has a banner that says, when you join the Illinois State Police, you lose the right to be unfit. That is the motto. And that's just not physically, it's also mentally as well. Because the ability to make decisions in a small amount of time frame has to deal with your physical condition and your mental condition.
That's true.
And your physical has an effect on your mental.
Amen to that. And I know that as a coach, as someone who talks about and lives a life that where mental clarity and focus matters. So how does this play out? How does this play out with what we're seeing in terms of police killings? Like, why would this matter? Like this, this level of training.
So let me take the most recent incident. George Floyd's incident.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'll start with the Atlanta incident.
And this is when you talk about the Atlanta incident, you're referring to Rayshard Brooks.
Rayshard Brooks,
who was recently shot twice in the back and killed.
Okay. This is in my opinion only, and you have to remember that, and I preface that to everyone. Mr. Brooks was killed because the officer lacked the ability to be physically fit and was not physically fit. He had his taser taken from him, and subsequently he shot Mr. Brooks. That was not about deadly force, in my opinion. There was no deadly force. Let me explain. On the use of force model, at the lowest level, you can utilize a taser for a verbal altercation. What am I saying? That it's not even considered deadly force on the use of force model in police standards. Understand that? Okay? So for you to say that him pointing a taser at you is deadly force is contradicting exactly the use of force model that we utilize. Because if him using the taser against you is a deadly force, and you using it against him would be considered deadly force as well. But that's not the case. The officer got his taser taken from him. He lost the fight. He lost the hand-to-hand combat situation, and he didn't want to take the L, and so he shot him.
And there were two officers.
Two of them. They lost the fight. This simply should have been, you got an L, he took off on foot, you weren't physically fit enough to go chase him and tackle him and grab back your taser, which should have never been taken from you in the first place, and you shot him. This is out of you being angry, upset about the fact that you lost the fight. This has nothing to do with anything else besides you lost the fight and you were upset and you shot him. This is a bad decision that was made. This is an officer who has no ability to control his anger or his frustrations. You could have easily, you had the car, you had his information and everything. You should have took the L and said, hey, he got away, and subsequently to that, we're going to call it out on the air and give a geographical location of where he potentially is traveling, and then do police work, real police work, which is go search and go find him. You got 365 days in a year to search and find this guy. You did not have to take his life at that moment at all. There's no cause for it whatsoever.
Got it.
Bad decision making, out of shape, frustrated because you lost the fight, and so you killed them. That's what happened.
Do you believe? Are you familiar with the incident with Walter Scott? And Walter Scott being shot, I believe he was shot in the back 8 times, and he was running from an officer as well. So are you saying that you believe that part of these killings are a matter of ego? And
I'm saying it about, yes, 100%.
And lack of training.
Lack of physical condition.
Lack of physical condition. Okay.
You are not physically fit to be an officer. A lot of these officers need to retire or resign. They should not be on the street. You can't run a mile and a half in a minimum of 12 minutes. You shouldn't be a cop. You chose this profession. This profession is a profession. It is just like becoming a lawyer, a doctor. This is a profession. People go to school for this training.
So let me ask you this.
Professional.
Let me ask you this, because there's been a lot of conversation. There's been a lot of conversation lately about police unions and the power that police unions have. And I don't know if you have the answer to this question. If you don't, you can say, I don't have the answer. But would you say that police unions have something to do with the fact that in some cases municipal police or city police versus in your case a state trooper, they don't have to be physically fit to perform the role? Like they don't have to pass physical requirements every year?
No, I think that's an agency issue. That is an agency setting a precedent. The state police has a union too. There's troopers' lodges all over.
I see.
And the reality of it is that the trooper lodge supports the idea of you being physically fit. This should be a mandatory requirement across the board for every agency, not just, if you look at all of these shootings, how many of them are with state troopers? How many of them are with?
Well, do you have the stats? I mean, most of them are with. I do notice that the majority of them are with municipal police. But do we have stats on state versus municipal in terms of these shootings?
We don't have accurate stats. Okay, we don't have definitive, accurate stats.
And that would be tough to do too, because municipal they're dealing with more citizens than a state.
Well, here's my issue with that. Mm-hmm. Well, and like in local municipalities, like they're called troopers, road guys. But listen, we make a lot of traffic stops, and we make traffic stops on the side of a roadway where we encounter the public, where we're potentially 8 to 10 seconds away from death because we're standing outside of a car and traffic is riding past us, and we have the time frame between 30 to 60 seconds to make a decision on the person we're dealing with. It's
true.
a lot more dangerous.
True.
Versus a local municipality is dealing with an individual on the street. You have a lot more time within the street to make decisions about what you're going to do with a potential suspect or a violator than a state trooper does. If a guy takes off on me on a highway, okay, in a car, or takes off on foot, and he gets across a lane of traffic because there's just one moment of lane of traffic, I don't have the same advantage as a local municipality guy who literally has potentially no traffic on that street whatsoever. So the decision making, in my opinion, from a local municipality, you have a lot more time to make a good decision than a trooper does, and we encounter the public on traffic stops daily.
Gotcha.
Maybe more than local.
Got you. Okay. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit. So if you're just joining us, I'm talking to Jonathan Morris, former Illinois State Trooper, retired sergeant, and municipal police. Has played the role of police officer in law enforcement, both on the state level and the municipal level. And also a friend of mine who I've been in conversation with about some of what's been going on in the United States of America between black people and police. And by the way, Jonathan, this is not the first time we've had a conversation like this. Maybe the first time we've had it on the air, but not the first time we've had a conversation like this. So one of the things that has been coming up, and at the top of the hour, I do want you to share, because I know you said there are 5 things that you believe that we as blacks in America can do to increase the likelihood of living in a police encounter. I hate that we even have to have a conversation like that, but I do want you to share that once we get past the break. But for now, I want to dive into this conversation around police reform, or what they're saying, defund the police, and get your perspective on. I have a perspective on defund the police, but I'm curious, like, as a former police officer, when you hear that, what comes up for you? Like, what do you think about that concept?
Well, here's what I think of that concept. I enjoy being a police officer because, and I support police officers, the ones that make good decisions and the ones who are out there doing a good job, because there's some out there that are doing a great job. And I believe that funding the police department is necessary so that these officers can have the right tools to be able to do the job and do it effectively and do it the right way. However, it's almost like a child being put on punishment. If you do what you're supposed to do, then mommy and daddy are probably more than likely are going to give you what you need, maybe increase the tools that or toys that you have, maybe buy you a new PlayStation, maybe buy you. But if you're being disobedient and you're not performing, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, then those things get taken away from you. And it's unfortunate that it's just clear, cut, and dry that officers across this country, within these departments, and there are some good ones, but the bad ones are jamming it up. And subsequently for that, because of that reason, maybe defunding can cause change. Maybe that's their portion of reform. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think defunding is.
So what do you think would work? I mean, what are the top 3 things as a former police officer, former law enforcement? What are the top 3 things that you think we could do to reform policing in America?
Okay, number 1, you've got to start with the PFIT across the country. Every agency has to adopt that.
And when you say PFIT,
the minimum
you mean
standards,
you
the
mean
physical fitness exam. You've got to adopt that.
Okay.
Every department, CPD, everybody, it has to be mandatory. And if you are not able to pass it, there has to be disciplinary action up to termination. That has to be stressed. It has to be a requirement that you're physically fit. Second, the psychological tests that you take. Okay, becoming a peace officer needs to be reevaluated every year. Okay, you take it when you first become a police officer to evaluate your train of thinking. It's like 500 questions, and these 500 questions go through a series of things about you personally and about how you are involved and how you see the world, the community, the whole night. That test needs to be a part of the PFIT test as well, and given again every year to see where that officer's thought process is. Okay.
And if something has changed while he's been on duty?
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, to see if something has changed in his psychological behavior and thought process as he's progressed on the job. Because you change and you evolve when you become police. From a rookie to the time you're 15 years in, you've changed. Physically, mentally, emotionally, the whole 9 yards. That needs to be reevaluated.
And that's real. Let me tell you, because I recall, it's maybe about a year or so ago, I was having breakfast with a colleague, and I was right next to the academy in the West Loop, and a bunch of brand new, they were becoming police officers. And when I said they look green, brother, they look green. I mean, green, like just, I was like, wow, they're going to be police officers. And when I was leaving the restaurant, I wished them all luck. And I told them, I said, take a good look at yourselves, because this job is going to change you. And ask yourself, you know, will I still believe in the things I believe in, and will I still maintain the values that I have today? I said, ask yourselves that question, because I know for a fact this is a job that changes people. And they kind of all just stared at me like, all right, whatever, you know. But I mean, they were young, they were green,
Right.
and
But 100% correct.
yeah, and even now, I'm sure many of them physically look different and think differently. So what you're saying is,
100%.
so what you're saying in terms of reform, then psychological testing, so physical fitness exams every year, psychological
Every year.
testing every year.
Every year.
And then what would you say
Every
is
year.
number 3?
So the number 3 is kind of a combination thereof, because I'm looking at effective change, like where you can immediately see change.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So the agency's leadership across the country, so that's all the leadership within the agencies, have to take on a new perspective of community policing. They're not effectively teaching, in my opinion, community policing, which encompasses, which is a part of community policing and a part of an officer's duty. This is why I say it's a 2-part answer to number 3. Understanding the real, true uniformity across a use of force model. So, agencies across the country have different use of force models, okay? And some of them are very similar to a lot of them, but it needs to be definitively across America, because this playing the game of my life was in great danger and jeopardy, and subsequently I took out the subject. I mean, the report is already written in your head as an officer on how it's got to flow in order to make sure you get off. Okay, that's just the dynamics of it, okay? But if you want true reform and accountability, it has to be embedded into agencies across the board that deadly force is not the first resort. It is definitively and
So hold on.
unquestioned.
But isn't that trained? I mean, to hear you say that, like, gives me great pause, because wouldn't that be something that every police officer before they graduate the academy is trained on, and then that's reinforced, that use of deadly force is never, I mean, it is the last resort. Wouldn't that be trained?
It's supposed to be, but evidently it's not getting through. It's not working. Whatever the training is needs to change. It's use of force, a deadly weapon, preserving life, taking life, needs to be embedded. There needs to be a training on what happens to you as an individual mentally when you take a life. These officers, I don't care what you say, whether they were white supremacists or whatever they were, racist before, they're tormented mentally. They're done forever. A split-second decision has changed their entire dynamics of their life forever. And it needs to be embedded from a training perspective, the seriousness of it, because people are firing off shots, and killing people like you can bring them back. What are you doing killing a guy for taking your taser? What are you doing killing a guy because he's running from you and you can't catch up? What are you doing taking life? Listen, these officers are not understanding that at the end of the day, if a guy gets away from you, you live to see another day. So what? You lost the fight. These aren't.
Well, let's talk about that real quick.
These are not.
Let's talk about that real quick. We got 60 seconds before we go to the break, because I remember when you were going through the academy, and you and I sparred a bit. We played around, and you learned different forms of martial arts. And I know for me, I've been studying martial arts on and off for a good portion of my life. One of the things I have a hard time understanding is why deadly force is used, like even with the Rayshard Brooks incident, how did he get away? Like, how does he? How did? I mean, to train. Is
He lost the fight.
is it that level? But I mean, what level of training are officers receiving to go out into the street?
None.
I mean, that can't be
Ground
true.
fighting.
That can't be true. I mean,
None. What do you mean it can't be true? When you are in a
but
situation,
they have to be receiving some level of martial arts training. Yes, in the academy.
listen. When you get into a fight or flight situation and you get tunnel vision, and an adrenaline rush is going, you go back to what you were trained. That is what you will go back to, no matter what you think. You'll go back to it even without the gear.
And are they trained to pull out the gun and pull the trigger?
This is my problem. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It ain't trained to go to hand-to-hand combat and hit the ground. These agencies got to take accountability for this.
All right.
Why is it that your officer is not ready to go to a ground fight and welcome that and show his ability to learn what he's learned to be able to actually successfully win a hand-to-hand combat situation? This guy took your taser in a hand-to-hand combat situation because you can't fight. You shouldn't be the police.
All right, got it. Well, we're going to take a quick break. Been talking with Jonathan Morris, former state trooper here in Illinois. My name is Linal Harris. You've been listening to Inspirational Perspective. Today we're talking understanding policing in America. We'll be right back. Whew. Wow. That's all I can say right there. Wow.
The talk of Chicago and the voice.
I got some phone calls, man. I'm
WVON, Berwyn, Chicago.
gonna take these phone calls because I really want to
Virus spreading. Deadly.
get a different level
Christopher
of
Cruz. Florida,
perspective.
Texas, Arizona, Nevada, South Carolina, all among the states reporting
check real
record
quick.
numbers of
These all phone
coronavirus
calls?
infections this weekend. And today, the number of cases has now exceeded 10
I'm gonna
million,
answer.
and almost 500,000
Can you-
deaths
can you-
worldwide.
can you let me know
New
who was who?
coronavirus cases
All right.
are rising in at least half of the
man.
American states now. Correspondent Polo Sandoval says the nation's
I'm-
second
I'm,
largest state is now retreating from some reopening plans.
I'm like, wow, right
seeing
now.
Increased cases, maintaining well over 5,000 new cases a day.
Oh, you're welcome, man. I feel like this is
Governor ordered bars closed.
yeah, this is a
and
necessary
hindsight
conversation.
reopened them too soon.
San Antonio Mayor Ron Nierenberg says his
and the
fellow
conversation I wanted to have-
created confusion about how to fight the virus.
We need to.
So
if we're gonna open
we
up
get it.
This country in the next.
One
couple
of the callers
years,
said, "And what
we
now?"
all need to
I don't think we can
heed
jump
the
to
word
"and what
of
now"
medical
until we have a
experts,
better
wearing
understanding
face
of
masks,
what is.
physical distancing,
Um,
sanitation,
and that's
hygiene,
part of
all
what
the
I
things
really
they've
want to
been
do right
telling us,
now.
but
They
we're
say,
getting
"And
too
what
many
now?"
mixed
So we're talking about it.
messages
And what
from
now?
politicians
And what I'm saying is
Washington,
like
D.C.
I really want to
and at the
understand
state
what
capitol.
One
is.
employee at a
In
Walmart
coaching,
distribution center
one of the
in
fundamental
Northern
things
California is dead,
that we do
4 wounded,
is we
and
always
30
establish a ground base, right? In terms of, okay, where are we? Where are we right now? Even with goals, okay, where's point A? And how, and then once you gain clarity and awareness on point A, then you can set the vision for, all right, and this is where we want to go. I don't think, and it's, I mean, honestly, this is giving me a different perspective on where we are. And it's an incredible amount of work to do. So anyway, let me look here and see what questions you guys have so I can ask. I haven't even got to, I mean, I got like 20 plus questions for Jonathan, and I haven't even had a chance. I mean, just the conversation itself is riveting. Is there a cultural piece implied to the use of force training in terms of those to protect versus those who are criminals? That's a good question. I'll ask that. And I'm also, thanks for that, Cantice, and I'm also interested in implicit bias training. You know, it's interesting because in corporate America, as a chief diversity officer, this is, I mean, cultural competence, implicit bias, inclusion training, all the types of things that as leaders was important, right? And here we have officers in the street, and I don't think they get any of this training, and they're dealing with different people day in and day out. And implicit bias is real, folks. If you don't know what implicit bias is your knee-jerk reaction based on your programming. And I think we all know that the programming in the United States of America, when you're talking about black men and black women, is to be afraid, or that there's something afoot in many ways. And so I know for a fact, and I've actually pitched to different police departments on some level of implicit bias training and inclusion training, cultural competence training. I know for a fact it's necessary. I know for a fact it's necessary. I also know for a fact it's not one of the things that's typically made a priority. So I'll definitely be asking that questions. Thanks for that. Let me see what other questions you guys have. By the way, good morning to all of you. I see there's a lot of agreement, a lot of wows. Let's see here. Somebody said, looks like he was beginning the force in the picture. Man, black don't crack, huh? Let's see, just looking at any questions you guys have real quick. Physical and mental testing would change everything if administered without bias, but what stops the harassment of black men and women without cause? We're going to talk about that, racial profiling. I want to get his perspective on racial profiling too when we come back. Let's see. Part of the problem, in my opinion, this is from Tony, is that there is no action or accountability for officers discharging a firearm. During security training, we were told if you pull the trigger without justification, the Uniform Code of Military Justice will come down on you hard and you will be held accountable. No union will protect you in the military. No, they do not get martial arts training. They go through subdue tactics. They don't get... I'm having a hard time with the fact that police officers don't get martial arts training. I mean, I guess for me, as a normal citizen, right, who has a family, who he has to protect, martial arts training is just one of the things that I've included in my life. And as a police officer, I would think that there's an opportunity for some level of discount for continual training, some level of discount or some level of free training at the department level, so you know how to handle yourself. I can't wrap my arms around that. All right, thank you so much for this. You're more than welcome. Let's see, any other questions? Yeah. And also adding to Cantice's question, in due process of alleged criminals to uphold separation of powers, do they understand that they are not judge, jury, and executioner on the street? I don't think so. I'll answer that question. I mean, based on what we see, I don't think so. Ask him about George Floyd. I plan to. Thanks for that. Educators go through the same training. Yeah. I mean, every other job is so difficult to get. Teachers, just to be a teacher, the amount of certifications and things that you have to go through. I'm with you. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, your son grew up in martial arts training. And it's interesting, man, because I know even for me, there's your level of fear drops with your training. I mean, how you size up a situation, your level of fear drops when you have some level of martial arts training. And so to be out here on the street with subdue tactic training and that's it, I see why there's so much fear. I didn't know that. That's surprising. So when we talk about, and I'll give when we come back, I'll give my perspective on defunding the police. Might not be popular, but I will give my opinion on it. Because I'll give you a heads up. I don't think we should defund them, honestly.
Midway Broadcasting Corporation or our participating
some people are going to be like, what?
Live
I don't think we should.
Xfinity Studios
I
at
think
the
what we should
WVON.
do is reallocate the funds. And I'll talk more about that.
You're listening to Inspirational Perspective with Linal Harris on 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
If you wanna be about it, come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibility. Find your power, passion, and purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dream. Love is like now. Inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live. Let's find your purpose now. With inspirational perspective. Let's slay your goals, let your greatness flow. With inspirational perspective.
All right, we're back. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach, right here on WVON 1690 AM, the talk of Chicago. I have Jonathan Morris with me this morning, former Illinois State Trooper, retired sergeant from Municipal Police Department, and he's with us this morning, really helping us understand policing in America. And so Jonathan, once again, I'm thankful to have you on the air with us, and thank you for being so generous with your time this morning, man.
No problem. I'm glad to be here. I wanted to remind you of one thing before we got back into the top of the hour here.
Okay.
The key element to these agencies across America changing as well is their FTO programs, Field Training Officer. That's what it stands for.
Okay.
Why are FTOs, or why are officers becoming FTOs that have numerous complaints from citizens for behavioral or for issues where they've encountered the public that weren't favorable because they didn't know how to deal with the public? They have shootings that are in their files that I'm talking in particular George Floyd situation. That officer shouldn't have been in the street, yet alone an FTO officer. You guys got to remember that the officer who was out there on his fourth day is being trained by a guy who makes bad decisions. Once again, his file proves it, and yet he's an FTO. So that would be another portion of police reform. The FTO officers have to be the cream of the crop. They have to be the best
officers.
Of the best.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, in every other, in corporate America, in education, almost everywhere else you go, the best are always training the new people. The best, the absolute best. Not the longest tenured, but the best.
Not
typically.
the par, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we already know that Officer Derek Chauvin, so he's no longer an officer, Derek Chauvin's record was horrible. 18 to 19 complaints.
Right.
He had already had some level of question marks on his record from using physical force in the past in ways he shouldn't have. And the fact, I think you're right, the fact that he was a field training officer is absolutely horrible and points to mismanagement within the police department and these agencies. And I thank you for calling that out. I 100% agree. I 100% agree. And I would say, and that's something we need to do. Now, I want to share this because somebody might be saying, why is Linal having this show this morning, especially those of you tuning in? And the last time I was on the air a couple of weeks ago, I shared three visions that I have based on all that's going on with us in Black America. And the first one was an anti-racist standard for all Americans across the board. anti-racist. That's one of that's a vision I have for this country. The second one was reparations, an active apology, and an overt seeking for forgiveness for black descendants of slaves, because that's never happened and needs to happen, and it needs to be taught in schools, etc., across the board. But the third was around police and municipal reform that includes addressing police impunity, and also addressing redlining abuse and other laws that have been used to support systemic racism and pervert black protection, or pervert the protection of blacks under the law. And so I just want to be clear, this is one of the reasons I'm having this conversation, because I believe when you want to see something done, often you gotta put it on blast, or put it or speak it out loud in the way that you know how. Real quick, Jonathan, I want to go to the phone lines and take some calls here. Got a few calls. Let's go to line 1 with Maurice. Good morning, Maurice. How are you?
Oh, I'd rather be rich. How you doing, Jonathan? How you doing, Linal?
Doing well, brother.
Good. All right, let me start off by saying one God, one people, one bank. Haven't gotten that out of the way. Thanks for bringing more light, more clarity to this thing called policing in the United States. Because understanding is the best thing in the world. In fact, the Bible tells us, in all thy getting, get understanding.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So my take, guys, is the primary purpose of law enforcement in this country as we know it now is to preserve, protect, and defend white privilege. In other words, what they do is to help white people, the rich get richer. I'll say it like that. To help the rich get richer and keep the poor people poorer. And that's what we're seeing. Our communities are occupied. Like in the black community, they write more tickets. They lock our kids up for minor offenses. White kids get off. This is systematic looting us of our wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have to do is learn this thing called economics. At the core of it all, Brother Jonathan, I don't know if you've looked at it from this level. Most of us haven't, because we haven't been taught economics. But when we master economics like they have mastered economics, when we do economics like they do economics, when we create a central bank like they have a central bank, and I'm talking global here, it's over for them. Thank you, Linal. God bless you. Keep the faith and the money in the family. Love you.
All right, thanks, Maurice, for the phone call. Economics. So let's talk real quick, and I'm gonna go to the next caller after this. But so Jonathan, you were part of the police department. Let's talk about racial profiling. Is that real?
Mm-hmm. Of course, it's real. What do you mean? Of course it's real.
So, and I'm asking this because I just saw another interview with a police officer, black police officer, who was saying, "Oh, that's a bunch of baloney. It doesn't happen." And so, and you seem to disagree. So, so talk to me. I mean,
so here. Let me give it to you from me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, being a trooper, what's called an NIGGA from another trooper.
Wow. Wait.
Okay, let's just start there.
Wait. Okay. So
here's his exact words. "Hey John, where were you at? We just arrested an NIGGA, and he was calling me an NIGGA. Where were you at? We needed an NIGGA here." That's almost 5 times that word is used in a department that I work for, that I believe that there's great training from a use of force model. I believe there's great training from how to deal with the public, but I'm telling you,
my mouth
white
is open
supremacy, racism exists all day long, and it's going to be there. I don't think it's going anywhere. Because the dominancy, you got to remember, white America dominates the police department. There's never going to be more black officers than white.
Well, no, I mean, we make up 13% of the population, and then of that 13%, only 6% of the black men would even be eligible.
Maybe less than that.
Well, because you got to go through psych exams and physical fitness.
Exactly.
I'm talking about people
And
who
then
don't have
then you gotta have.
felonies.
Then you have. And then if they really get to the core of it all, the state police require you to have a certain credit score even to become a trooper.
So yeah, so we're talking about wow.
Of course it exists. I've seen it with my own eyes. Where I had to go check another trooper because he's talking out of line on the job.
Wow. So this is something you've seen, and I mean, have you seen this on both the state level and the municipal level?
100%. 100%.
So,
and the reality of that is that I don't even know if there's training for that. I'm gonna be honest with you.
well, I mean, so
This is embedded in individuals because of their upbringing. You got to
Right,
remember,
right.
a lot of officers and a lot of troopers come from historically family. Grandfather was a trooper, great granddad was a trooper. Everybody. So it's a historical thing, right? And subsequently to that, there's a level of understanding of how you perform this job from your great grandfather's day that has been passed to your daddy and your daddy's daddy and your daddy's daddy. Now it's your turn.
okay, so let's. I think that's a great pivot into the history of policing, because and by the way, I see I got a caller here who's basically saying, "And what now?" And to that caller, and then maybe you could talk to Pat. I want to be clear about something here. One, I respect the phone calls, but one of the reasons I want to have this conversation is because, and I shared this with the Facebook audience on the break, we have to understand what is in order to really move powerfully into what now. And I think we know, but I'm finding out things in this conversation that I didn't know, and you and I are friends. And so that's why I wanted to have a conversation specifically about policing in America from a black perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to the person who's saying, well, what now? What I would say to you is we got to get clear on what is, like crystal clear on what is. And again, thank you, Jonathan, for sharing your perspective on what is today before we can really begin to address where we want to go. So I just want to share that with them. If they want to switch it up a little bit, then Pat, if you can talk to the person online too and see if they have another question, I'm more than happy to take the call. Okay, so this is where we are. So Jonathan, you mentioned that your grandfather was killed by a police officer, by a Chicago police officer.
100%. 1966.
Why?
November.
What made you become an officer? Like, why would you choose this profession, having had that history?
Well, here's my perspective that Black America might not agree with. Here's the deal. By the way, my grandfather got killed because they lost the fight. Once again, not physically fit. Okay, it's a witness. You can Google it if you got a chance. Cop kills ex-Lewis sparring mate over traffic ticket. You can put that in Google and you can see what happened to my grandfather.
So your grandfather,
they're 40 years old.
So your grandfather was Joe Lewis's sparring partner?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was killed on a traffic stop in front of my auntie, my uncle, and my mom.
Wow.
Shot right in the stomach.
So they were in the car?
They were in the car.
1966.
Yeah. Okay. And you know why they killed him?
Tell me.
Because they tried to arrest him for obviously 1966 nonsense. He knocked both of them out to the ground. He was standing there, both of them on the ground. The officer pulled out his gun while he was on the ground and shot my grandfather. He lost the fight. And instead of losing the fight because you're not physically fit and say, I lost the fight, you lay on the ground after getting knocked out and shoot him in his stomach. You lost the fight. This is once again happened in 1966. Once again, officers being cops and not ready to be a cop because you're not physically fit.
So that goes to the top three that you discussed. Okay, so I want to talk about training in the police department. One of the questions I got from a Facebook listener is what type of cultural training do police receive? I mean, you're dealing with people of different cultures. Obviously, the motto for police all over the United States of America is protect and serve. And so, in my opinion, I would think in order to protect and serve people, that you would need some level of cultural training on the people that you're protecting and serving. Is that evident in at least in the police departments that you work with in terms of the state and the municipal district that you were in before retiring?
Okay, I'll say it like this. They have online training bases or online, trainings where you can go through them and hit click next, and it's going to be police, community police training, bias policing training, whatever. They do have training instruments within the departments for you to have to keep you updated.
Are they mandatory?
Yeah, these are mandatory, ethical policing, all these are mandatory training that you can read through and skim through and hit next. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Ethics, police ethics, next. That's not where the training really needs to be. The training needs to be a real session with the community leaders within that community giving real feedback and understanding of what is being experienced so they can have an understanding of how to deal with it. The stuff we're reading online is not, the stuff that's on these trainings is not effective. It doesn't give you an effective way to deal with the community. You need to really be involved with that community in some shape or form to know how to deal with that community. And subsequently to that means that it needs to be some type of organized way where the community town hall meetings or whatever may take place, the board meetings, the city council meetings that are taking place, the community needs to be involved. And that's the real training. The online stuff you can read through and hit next, and be done.
What about mental health training for police officers? I mean, are they trained on mental health issues, like what they may encounter and what it may look like?
Of course, you're given what it may look like and what it may encounter. And they also have great, they have great training for you to be able to get that mental help if you need it. If you feel like if you feel like you're having a depression, or if you feel like you're not mentally capable of doing your job, you can call in and then you can get some time off, and then they'll send you to therapy and so on. And,
how is that viewed? Within police ranks.
Right now, I think some people are using it as a scapegoat not to be at work, right? I mean,
okay.
Geez, they're like, I can't take this, right? I need to be off work, so I'm gonna call into to HR and let them know, hey, I can't take this. This is psycho. This is bothering my mental health. Blah blah blah. So they're taking off. But you have to realize.
I would second that. I mean, I don't want them on the street.
Right. But there's a lot of officers that are utilizing to their advantage right at this moment.
I got you.
But what I tell you is this: the real mental health, the real mental training needs to be evaluated before you get the badge. Okay? Before you get the badge.
And we've already heard of plenty of situations where officers are making the force even if they don't pass the psych test based on relationships they have, which that's got to stop. That's something that's something else that needs to 100% stop. So
but they're not weeding that out. They need to weed that out. They need to weed those guys out before they even get the badge. We don't need to be talking about, how can we mentally help this officer get mentally prepared now that he's got a badge, for God's sake. He should have never had a badge.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So let me ask you about this. You talked a little bit about Derek Chauvin and the George Floyd situation. It's like a horror video. That's like a horror video. Watching that, I know you've seen it. Then I could go down the line, down the list of different incidents, but the one I think that really, really strikes home right now for all of us is Elijah McCain. Young 23-year-old man, 140 pounds, walking home from the store with iced tea. 911 call. Hey, there's a suspicious individual. 3 police officers pull up on him. 140 pounds. Young man is 140 pounds. He then begins to, he's intelligent. He knows his rights. And he says, I don't have to stop. My home is right there. I'm going to walk home. Then he's subdued and killed, basically, right? And long story short, when he's subdued, they put him in the cardiac, or the not the cardiac, I'm sorry, the, what do you call it, the hole around the throat, cardioid, something like that.
Chokehold.
Chokehold. He's put in a chokehold. 140 pounds. We hear, I mean, you can hear the entire interaction. And then to be subdued, again, 140 pounds to subdue him. I didn't even know that you could legally inject a person with the tranquilizer. But he's injected with the tranquilizer. Later dies in the hospital. This is the Aurora Police Department in Colorado. Now, mind you, this is the same police department that also subdued an individual that had killed 12 people and injured others. And did it without hurting him physically at all. Can you, I mean, what is your perspective on this?
Okay, you ready for this?
I am.
If you watch the video, the whole approach is wrong. Once again, not knowing how to deal with the community of Black America. Totally wrong. Jumping out the car, hold it right there, blah, blah. You're talking to a guy who just bought groceries, man. This is not your suspect. Nor does he even, this situation ticks me off so much because this is just lack of training and guys that are idiots that should not be cops. I said it, they're idiots. Bottom line.
But the problem is that these
an indicator
idiots,
of an individual.
Yeah, but the problem, Jonathan, is that these idiots are taking Black men and Black women's lives.
100%. And this is the problem that I have, and this is an agency issue. This is an agency issue. Why are they still on the force? You're not going to control the white supremacy and the racism. That's going to exist, and it does. I'm not here to sell you a dream. You're not going to stop it.
Well, I mean, you're talking to, but you are talking to somebody that believes in the impossible. So I do believe that it can be stopped. And let me be really, really clear on why. Because race and racism is a human construct. It's a human construct. Anything created by humans can be destroyed. I'm going to be clear about that. I believe that to the core of my soul. Okay.
And I love it. I love it. I love
it. It can be destroyed.
I love it. I think it's incredible. I only deal with what I can tell you I live with. Anytime I'm on a department where the other guy's calling me a NIGGA, okay, and think it's okay in front of all these other white Americans, you've got to be kidding me. This stuff exists and it's embedded in some of these people, and it's just there. And it's a part of their history and their heritage.
So let's go.
Bless you if you think that it can change. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Those white officers in Colorado who were racist, white supremacists, all of that, okay, in my opinion, didn't even have common sense from a policing perspective.
So
there are very few indicators if a person's committed a crime. What do you think a person who committed a crime is going to do if the cops is in somewhere vicinity of them in some shape or form? If they've just committed a crime,
they're going to run.
Are they walking with a bag going home?
I mean,
are they even communicating to you and say I have the right to walk home?
So I mean, they're gonna run. They're gonna run, and we know that. So I want to get to this then, because what I'm hearing from you is that you believe that there's a nature in policing that is inherently racist. And you said there are good police officers, there are bad police officers, but there's a nature in policing in many places that is inherently racist. Now, and the proof is out there. I mean, the FBI has been warned that KKK members and cells have been infiltrating the police force for years. They've been told this, and there's nothing's been done about it. Okay, and so that much we do know is true. The documents are out there; it's public. That much we do know is true. So
I'm not going to name a department, but that was part of the application process. You had to sign a KKK. You had to sign up with the KKK.
Why not name the department? What department is that?
Well, because of a couple of reasons. One, I think that the department in particular has made some changes.
Okay.
But historically, that was something that was a part of the process, but they've changed now.
Got it.
And for that reason, I give them the ability to, because I know for sure that they've changed. If they not, I'd put them on blast.
Okay, got it. Okay, so this is the reality that we're up against. So then let's go back to Elijah McClain. Okay. Did he ever stand a chance?
No.
So you have a son.
Yeah.
How does that, I mean, as a former police officer, I mean, how do you think about that? How do you teach your son? Because, I mean, my people are saying, like, I mean, people in the Facebook feed, I'm sure people at home are like, what do we do? How do we address this?
Okay.
How are you addressing it with your son, with your daughters, as a father?
This is what I tell my son. You don't stand a chance having a conversation with a cop. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. I'm being honest with you. I'm being honest with you. Don't fight. Don't try to explain nothing. Don't say nothing. Let them cuff you and take you in. You got a better chance of living. That's the fact.
So what about my rights, Jonathan? I mean, if I get pulled over in my car, I should be able to, I mean, they can't pull me out of my car. That's illegal.
Right. That's what you think.
Well, those are my constitutional rights.
Yeah, and they're violated every day. This is the reality of this. What do you want me to say to you? Want me to sing you a dream? I've seen it. What do you want me to say? I'm having to check people on the job. I'm having to check officers who are higher authority than me. Yes, the Bill of Rights, the laws of search and seizure, the Fourth Amendment, which a lot of us don't know. The people have the right to be secured, their persons, houses, papers, and effective against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. No warrant shall be issued upon without proper cause. Yes.
All right, so what you would tell your son is be quiet, turn around, put your hands up, don't say a word, and get arrested.
100%. And let me come fight the battle. And it's fair, and it's jammed up because I got a badge, so I can fight it. I'm just gonna be honest with you, guys. Without a badge, you're gonna be able to fight it, but you have to fight it from a different perspective. I'm fighting it from the perspective because I'm a cop.
Right. So here's what I want to be clear about, because I'm not a police officer, but what I would use, and this is a different level of privilege that some of us have. Because I would be on the phone with people like you, with politicians. I mean, everybody at my disposal. Hey, my son is currently in custody for something that I know he has no business being in custody for, right? But so there's a listener right now who doesn't have that level of connection, who doesn't have the money to go out and get an attorney almost immediately.
Right.
What?
Here's Here's what I got. I got 5 ways. Once again, this is my opinion. 5 ways for a black American to increase their chance of surviving a traffic stop. I'm just going to be straight with you as a police officer. Right now, you got 50-50 chance. And that's just the way I see it. I can give you an extra 25% with no guarantee, in my opinion. These guys, it's that bad.
And this is what based on what you've seen and what you're seeing.
100%.
Okay, so the 5 ways, real quick, the 5 ways.
1, when you see the light of the police officer, you can choose to do this or you don't. Pull over immediately to the left or right, put your car in park, and take your foot off the brake. Why? Because I've seen it where I'm with a rookie officer, white American from Cairo County, who thinks because your foot is still on the brake that you about to run. And that changes the dynamics of his thought process on his approach to the vehicle.
So put it in park, take your foot off the brake.
Right. Because when your foot is still on the brake, they still think you got the car in gear. And if they think you got the car in gear, they think you're going to run. And if they think you're going to run, they're adrenaline rush. Some of them they're just hyped. They don't know how to be cool and calm down and relax. Even if you did run, I'm the type, okay, you got a plate.
Got it.
That's one.
Yeah, so some of them are already emotionally hijacked. And so basically the instruction that you're giving us is how to, in some ways, before the police officer even gets to the vehicle, how to de-escalate the situation.
Yeah.
And so part of de-escalating the situation, put the car in park, take your foot off the brake. Number 1.
It calms them. It can calm. I'm not guaranteeing it. Once again, this is not a guarantee that you're going to stay alive on the traffic stop. I'm giving you an extra 25%. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Number 2, when you get in your vehicle, have your driver's license and insurance card readily available in a location where you can have it without causing furtive movement.
So,
okay?
So
is a word that's used in the police world to justify sometimes, and has been, taking lives. I thought he was reaching for a gun. He seemed to pull out a black object that resembled a weapon.
We know that.
I shot the subject.
Yeah, we know that one. I haven't spoken to a black man or woman that doesn't know better. I mean, and if it's the first time hearing it, you got to know you can't just go reaching in your pockets or into your glove compartment.
Have it ready above your sun visor.
Got it.
And don't have to be looking through the glove box trying to find the current one because you're moving too much. What are you doing? You're taking too long. The officer's getting nervous. You're black. He's white.
Somebody
in the
Facebook feed said also put on some country music.
I mean, I'm not going to say that that's going to help. But
that brings a little levity to a heavy situation. Okay, number 3.
Nighttime officers are different from daytime officers. The midnight shift officers are different from the 7 to 3 officers. They're different from the 11 to 7 officers. So, in both aspects, it's easier just to roll down your window.
Hold on.
Roll down your windows immediately.
Yeah. But hold on. Why would I roll down my window? Why? I mean,
you don't have to.
I'm cracking my window.
Right. You can crack it. Do whatever you want. I'm just trying to increase you with a 25% chance of staying alive.
So what's the difference between? Let me ask you this. What's the difference between me cracking the window and rolling down the window? Because when I roll down the window, I'm completely exposed to this officer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you are.
He can then open the door from the inside and force me out of the car, which then gives 100%. Him rights to me, everything in the car and rights to me.
100%.
So when you tell me to roll down the window, that's in some ways me giving up my constitutional rights.
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you the letter of the law that helps officers win all day long. Technically, when the lights come on a squad car and he pulls you over, by definition, that's an arrest, even though you're not in cuffs. It means you don't have the ability to leave. You're not free to go.
But I can sit in my car.
100%. You can sit in your car. I'm not changing the dynamics of
until
that.
the supervisor gets there.
If the officer tells you to step out of the car,
I can say no.
That's a very
legally I can say no.
Depending on the situation, you can't. What if you have a warrant and you don't know about it, and now he's getting ready to arrest you? Some officers tell you, some of them don't. They don't have to.
But if I refuse, shouldn't he tell me? Well, sir, you have a warrant.
He don't have to. He can pull you out of the car and put you to the ground. He can break your window and drag you through the window and put you in cuffs.
Okay.
There's nothing of the letter of the law.
But most of my listeners don't have warrants.
Well, you got a suspended license and you don't know about it.
He can pull me out the car for a suspended license.
100%. You're by definition 6-303.
So let's. I don't know if you have this, but one of the things I'm hearing is that one of the things we have to be vigilant about is making sure that all of the legal aspects of the privilege to drive are handled.
Yeah.
Is that part of your 5, or can we add that as number 6?
You gotta add a number 6.
Okay, so my listeners, let me tell you something. All legal aspects of your privilege to drive should be handled. And I shouldn't have to say this. I shouldn't. But in the reality of us making sure that in our interactions with police, we can in many ways increase the likelihood of survival. This is something that needs to be done, and we have to be vigilant about it. So go ahead and continue to number. Are we on number 3 now?
Number 3 is roll down.
Oh, roll down the window. Yeah, that's what we got into an argument about. Sorry about that.
With the immediately willingness to communicate.
And I need to be willing to communicate.
Yeah, because if you don't,
do you know how this sits for?
If you don't want to communicate, you just lessened your chances.
Do you know how this sits for many of us, though, Jonathan? I mean, and I get that you're trying to save our lives, but even for me, I'm like, man, I've been in the car with a white friend, and he talks however he wants to talk, and you're telling me that as a United States citizen, that because of my skin color, I mean, I have to do everything by the letter of the law, or my life is in danger.
There's different rules for you and me until they find out I'm a cop. I've experienced it.
Give me an example, a personal example that you have.
Just the other day, I was up North Division and Rush at the Bank of America on the corner. I was in a Ferrari. Maybe 10 cops rode past on a bike and saw my Ferrari sitting outside. Okay? I'm in the bank getting money out of the ATM. It's a convertible. They see inside of my car, my bag, whatever the case may be. I come out, I say, how can I help? Is this your car? Yeah, it's my car. Well, why'd you leave it running? What does it make a difference on why I'm leaving it running? Well, what are you doing? I'm getting money out of the bank. Well, do you got a weapon? Yeah, I got a weapon. The questioning and the temperament engaged, they got higher. I'm downplaying. Then I pull out the badge. I let them go through all their nonsense, and then I pull out the badge, and then I lost it. This is the reason why we're having the problem in America, because you idiots are not properly trained on how to deal with the public. And then all of a sudden the sergeant, like, relax, leave him alone. He's a cop. He's one of them. It shouldn't matter whether I'm one of you or not.
So it de-escalated with the badge.
Yeah, the whole dynamic changed. Oh, we sorry. You know, hey, man, let him be safe. He's cool. But of course I'm cool, because you pull out your gun, I'm pulling out mine too. How about that?
Yeah, but you have a different level of privilege. So let's keep going.
Exactly.
Number 4.
Number 4, which is probably, I don't know. Hands is what most officers think mentally that kills them. And remember, you have to remember the dynamic that a lot of these officers and troopers and people who are in law enforcement, They come from small towns that they've never dealt with black people in America. Now they own the Bishop Ford in 1994, and they're dealing with black Americans between 87 and 30. So they ain't dealt with you before. So they scared. I said it. They're scared. Some of these officers are scared.
So what do we do about that? What's number 4?
Keep your hand in a position visible where they can see it, so no assumptions to be made.
So hands visible.
Hands is what kill them. That's what people do. That's what that's what officers are trained. Hands is gonna kill you. A guy with no hands has a harder time killing you with a weapon of some sort. Hands is what's gonna kill you. So if I can see your hand, there's a better chance you've increased your chances of living.
Okay, so number 1, pull over, foot off the brake, put the car in park. Number 2, have your driver's license and insurance nearby, readily available where you don't have to go reaching for it. Number 3,
so you don't have furtive movement.
Roll down, or I'm gonna say crack the window and be fully communicative. And number 4, hands visible. What's number 5?
Number 5 is, unfortunately, almost like a Jim Crow type thing. Yes, sir. No, sir.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you don't have to do it. I'm just trying to tell you this will give you a 25% extra chance of surviving a traffic stop, because it's real. This is real.
So basically, what you're saying,
officers out here are taking lives in black communities because they don't know how to deal with this community. They don't know how to deal with it.
So basically, what you're saying is it's our job to de-escalate the police.
No, I'm saying to you is, if you want to live on a traffic stop and give you an extra 25% chance, you should adhere to what I'm telling you. If you don't,
how I read this is, it's my job. I'm just going to tell you, and I know that you're helping. I know you're doing your, as a former police officer and law enforcement individual, you're sharing with us what you believe will help.
Correct.
I'm telling you, as a citizen of the United States, as a law-abiding citizen of the United States, this is offensive. I'm just telling you. And I get, I want to be clear, I get where you're coming from. Do you get where I'm coming from?
100%.
Okay.
It's ridiculous that it's to this point. All right? And this is, you can add this in there. We need to study the Bill of Rights. You need to study the 4th Amendment. Because your battles, you're not going to win it on the street. You got to stay alive enough to get to the courtroom. I'm just being straight with you. Then when you get to the courtroom is where you win your battle. And that means that you got a smart enough, an educated attorney who's smart enough to know the rules of engagement and the rules and how police operate. So when they do violate, you can hold them accountable and sue them and get paid for your mistreatment and your stressful situations you got to go, because you got different standards of rules on how you have to deal with the traffic stop.
Got it. Well, I mean, I appreciate you sharing this morning. Somebody said, "What now?" in terms of the questioning. I didn't take the call, but I hope you all get a better understanding of why I wanted to have this conversation. Because I don't think many of us, like, we see what's happening, and you can watch the George Floyd video and say, how could that happen? And I think what you're revealing to us in many ways, Jonathan, is this is how it happens. This is exactly how it happens. This is the system that is in place today that is really under the guise of protect and serve that needs to be reformed.
100%. And this George Floyd situation is dead wrong, out of line. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that's not even. That's not even.
Here's what I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm gonna tell you. He would have increased his chances, possibly, and Alpha still probably would have took his life. I still can't guarantee it. Had he just we don't have the ability to argue and speak. These people are not listening to you out on the traffic. They're not hearing you. They don't care what you're saying. I'm giving you facts. You're better off just laying down, saying nothing, and let them put the cuffs on you.
So let me ask you this: is this something that you see that is perpetuated against white people as well? This level of force?
No.
So then let me ask you this then. So this call for defunding the police, is this the right thing to do? Or are we missing the mark in some way, in your opinion?
What is the effect of defunding going to do? That's the question. What are we trying to? What are you effectively trying to do with defunding? What do you think is going to happen? What are they saying they think is going to happen? Oh, we're going to defund the police and they're going to be well behaved now. Is that what you think is going to happen?
Yeah. So what do you think should happen?
Like I said, racism, white supremacy, in my opinion, you're not going to beat that out of them. That's going to exist. They're going to continue to be officers. They're going to continue to do what they want to do and behave how they want to.
So let me ask you this then: is it possible that within the ranks of police that we can do away with this, I guess, badge of honor or blue code of not talking? So an officer like yourself, can we begin to fight this thing by good officers standing up? I mean, that's what we talk about in terms of anti-racism, right? Anti-racism isn't I'm a white person and I'm not racist. Anti-racism is I'm white and I speak out against racism, right? Okay, so same thing in terms of police. I'm a police officer and I speak out against police brutality. I speak out against things that I see that are illegal. Is that too much to ask?
No, that's not. That's not. And that is effectively going to help. But if you want effective change right away, you establish across the whole country, every officer got to take a PFIT test. I promise you'll get rid of a whole bunch off the top.
There, I got it. And so what you're saying in terms of police reform, we go back to these three that you outlined earlier in the show, 100%. Where you said, hey, look, all police officers need to be taking an annual physical fitness exam. Number two, all police officers need to be taking an annual psychological exam. Number three, all police officers need to get trained on community policing and should be part of the community, should be active in the community.
100%.
Got it.
But you start with number one, I promise you get rid of a whole bunch that you don't want out there in the first place.
Got it.
Because probably the ones that are I guarantee you, you implement that and you give them 3 chances and you tell them, look, if you don't pass on a third, you're terminated, you're going to change the whole dynamics of everything. I guarantee you. You'll have less community, you'll have less police officers. I'd rather have less officers that are more competent and physically fit, mentally fit, than to have a whole range and just a whole bunch of idiots out in the street. I'd rather have less officers on the street, but they're more confident and they know how to deal with the public. They're very good with decision making and their community involvement is proper, than to have 50,000 of them and they're running around like idiots, shooting and killing people.
Got it. Well, hey, Jonathan, I want to thank you for taking time with us this morning and sharing your perspective. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the air is because you speak your truth. I know a lot of us might not like it, but you speak your truth, and you always have as long as we've been friends. And I thought, in terms of, who's someone who I know is going to speak the truth, not try to be politically correct, but really put out there based on their perspective and what they've experienced, what's happening in policing in terms of at least what you've experienced as an Illinois state trooper, what you've experienced as a municipal sergeant in the Chicago metro area. And so I just want to thank you for that, man. I appreciate you.
Did you have me on the show? I hope that some information that I've given is insightful. I encourage Black America to really understand the Bill of Rights, really look into the Fourth Amendment, understand what those are. Don't fight your battle on the street. You're not going to win, in my opinion. The place to fight that is in the courtroom. You fight on the street, you're probably more likely to be killed. They're not hearing you. They're not listening to you. They don't care. I'm being straight with you. I'm not going to sell you a dream.
Got it.
Beg you.
Man, I appreciate it, brother. All right. Well, hey man, have a phenomenal day, and
You too, now.
we'll definitely be reconnecting soon.
Thanks, love.
All right. For those of you listening, my name is Linal Harris. Hey, I just want to say this before we close the show out, and in many ways, I wanted to have this conversation and talk with Jonathan because I want to know what's so. I have a vision. You heard me talk about my vision during our conversation. My vision is that racism can be destroyed. It's a human construct. It's something that men created. It was created due to greed, due to misuse of religion, and it can be destroyed. I believe that. But in the meantime, we need to know what we're up against as we create the vision for the future. And so I do hope that in some way, this is giving you a very clear perspective of what we're up against as Black Americans, and a clear perspective on the type of vision that it will take for us to begin to transform our communities. Until next week, God bless you all. And definitely looking forward to reconnecting with you all again next week in the month of July. Stay blessed and have a phenomenal Sunday. All right, that's the show. Wow. It's heavy, but I think I'm all about reality. And he gave us a very realistic view of what's going on in policing. And so we can take that and then we can use it to move forward with some level of action. Thank you guys for joining. Please share the stream with those who you know need it. Until next Sunday, see you guys. Love you. Thank you for the support.